actually pick up from session 1, where we went through the 7 steps of buying. We tied it into the depletion graph. We went through all the common errors. We went through really every component in a pretty deep way. But now we get to hit some of the components with these case studies. And we're excited to do that. As a reminder last time, and Barry, I'm just forwarding a couple of slides. I think this was the critical slide from last time. This is taking the depletion graph and reminding everybody that we go right down the middle with the fact that everything to the right, the components to the right, how the forecast line sits to the right on these, that's all about when to buy and making sure we hit service levels. And to the left is more about the how much to buy and about inventory levels. So as you're having issues with either one, you know where to focus first. Isn't that a good way to break that down?
Yeah, it really is. And the way you can use this graph, you can use it as a menu for any type of education, small sessions that you want to do. I mean, it really is a menu of opportunity, and the opportunity can be in a number of different areas.
It is. Right? And this is just recapping again last week, some stuff from last week. Your point about this visual, I know several of the people attending today have this visual on their wall in their inventory area in large format, in the large canvas format. Sounds a little cheesy, but hey, when you find that you have to talk through a problem, gathering around this, really helpful. A few more minutes and we'll hit the case studies. And by the way, some of the folks on board have said, hey, I'm attending with a couple of people. Not everyone can attend. Are you going to record it? Absolutely, we're going to record it. These recordings sell so well. Ranked number 7 on Spotify just last week, weren't they? Maybe not, but still very worthwhile. Okay, we still have a minute or two to go. I see we have some East Coast folks. We have some West Coast folks that have attended also. We always love them as well. Various industries. That's what I like about these sessions. People from all the different industries chiming in.
Yeah.
You've got some art, you've got some HVAC, some food. Throw in a little dental after the food.
Yeah. Wine and spirits.
Yeah.
And then again, HVAC, art supply, and all kinds of. Let's see, we can continue going down the list.
Are you an artist at all, Barry?
Yes, I am.
Are you?
Yeah.
Good to know. I'm the only one in my family without art.
Haven't you seen the gallery?
I have not. I have not.
Now, we've known each other for a long time. You don't know about my gallery?
No. One more minute, everyone. One more minute. We'll get into these case studies. We appreciate everybody jumping in and joining.
But going back to my gallery, depletion graph.
Oh, that artwork.
Safety stock.
Yeah. Inventory artwork is a different genre, I think.
I know, but it's my specialty.
Okay.
How an item how an item becomes an exception.
That's good.
Yes.
All right. Folks, it's probably time we go ahead and start, which is great because we are excited to start. And again, we will record this session as well. So you've tuned in. This is Dan and
I'm Barry.
And we have a passion for inventory. We were both inventory planners or buyers many years ago, have had a chance over the years to implement systems, to train people, and that's our passion, really, is the education side of this stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go forward, and just a quick review. If you missed last week, that recording is out there. And we feel like it was a really great session. If you missed last week, we went through the 7 steps of buying. We tied it in with the depletion graph. We hit 13 key points that we feel like people forget or at least need to know really well. Please go watch that one. It's really worthwhile. What we're going to do this time is we're still going to hit, Barry, the 7 steps of buying,
Right.
but we're not going to hit every area in the same kind of depth. We're going to take some case studies, okay? And these are case studies over either the last 3 weeks or the last 30 years. Wow, that's a range, isn't it? And the first one, are you ready for this? The first one, number 1, is the great Ketchup mystery. I know you know what's coming, but they don't. And in the great Ketchup mystery, what we're really hitting is demand deviation. By the way, we're going to hit 7 key case study areas. As we do, we're going to remind you and tell you what the goal is for each one, because for each one of these, there is a purpose. It's not just to show you some pictures, and it's really not just to educate, but in this one, we want to make sure everybody understands how the demand deviation influences or should influence your merchandising mix and how it definitely influences your income statement. So some of the people tuning in are on an advanced system. We're lucky here to be sponsored by Blue Ridge in this session. Some are not yet on a system, so we're hitting all audiences. For every audience, I'm going to say that for anyone going from good to great, this area, finally having the understanding of demand deviation, it might be the biggest impact they have on their inventory. And this picture, Barry, just breaks down, you know, the A item steady mover all the way through the C and D item really erratic mover. And I don't think these pictures are surprising, but this is a reminder what the steady item means in terms of consistency, low safety stock, and so forth. And I think this picture is one that really everybody in the company should know and how it influences safety stock and inventories in general. And that's just a statement before we get into the big Ketchup mystery.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
I agree completely. I mean, that number hits the bottom line. And you don't often hear us talking about or historically talking about the bottom line and how it ties into deviation. There are other things, of course, that hit the bottom line. And through the years, we've focused on those numbers, but this is an eye-opener. So stay tuned to this story that you're about to hear.
Absolutely, and it does definitely impact their chance to make money. So you know where this is going. And for me personally, years ago, one of the first companies that I had a chance to implement with an advanced system was a company called the Price Club, now called Costco. And the learning experience there hit me hard through Ketchup, which is one of my favorite items ever. And you know why it's one of my favorite items ever?
I sure do.
I come from the city of Pittsburgh, the home of Heinz Ketchup, which should be the only ketchup anybody ever uses.
Well, there's not another ketchup.
There's really not. Now, for everyone out there, here's what we want you to do. We want you to know how to tell this story so you can educate all of the management players in your company, every other department in your company, and it goes like this. The interesting thing to me when we implemented the Price Club / Costco is that unlike my grocery store down the street that has 15 or 20 SKUs of ketchup, the Price Club had 1 SKU of ketchup. It was 1 large ketchup, and all the demand for ketchup, let's say the demand was 500 a week, all that demand fell in 1 item. So that 1 item had a high forecast. The movement, Barry, was really consistent. And I'm not talking 15% deviation. I'm talking 5, 6, 7% deviation. The grocery items at the Price Club, on a club like that, those items move so smoothly, it's unbelievable because they only carry 1. All the customers are buying the 1. Safety stock needs are low. They can ask for 99 plus in service and hit it very affordably because it's so consistent. So they keep the expenses low, and that's how a Price Club makes money. So when you think about Costco, Sam's, BJ's, any of those clubs, they don't make money from the annual membership fee. That's not it. They make money because they carry 1 instead of the whole spectrum of what a grocery chain or would carry.
Right.
And so that relates to everybody listening in all of your companies. You're always making merchandising decisions on how many items to have in a category. So my grocery store down the street, whether they go to 10, 15, or 20 different SKUs, different brands, different sizes, flavors, bottle types, before you know it, here's what you have. You still have maybe a fast mover and then a couple of somewhat fast movers, and then the slower mover and the really slow movers. These are real erratic. What you end up having, Barry, is you might still have demand of 500 for ketchup, but that is spread across a fast mover of 300, and then the other 200 spread through all these items. So what that means is a bunch of cycle stock that you wouldn't have needed on all these other items, a bunch of safety stock because they're very erratic moving, and all that plays into the profit picture of the company in an unbelievable way. And the unbelievable part is the executives don't realize this. They don't know that that deviation number is a number that they should know, right? So I know you want me to show this. So here we go. You might look and say, okay, in this grocery store that has 15 or 20 SKUs, the average deviation of this A item is 10%. Of these two B items is 30, 65% here, 90 or 100 or 100 plus here. And then you really have a whole different picture of inventory levels and thus profit. Okay. We'll come to this, back to this in 1 second. Barry, you and I went out, we grabbed a hold of a few companies, we grabbed data, and we said, if we take all the items and look at really slow movers, 0 to 1, all the way to really fast movers, 500 and above, we went and actually looked at what are average demand deviations. And for those of you on an advanced system, like our sponsors, you can do this in seconds, and it's really valuable to see. In this case, the average is 62% deviation. The average here is 15 on the fast movers, Barry. And then within each one of these, you can see a true profit picture. By the way, they're losing money on a lot of the items in this category right here. That's something they've got to know. So here's 2 questions for everyone. Ready? For your categories of items, if you take one category, or all of the categories, what is the average demand deviation? And we say weighted. What's the average dollar weighted demand deviation for that category? Because you may have started with 5 items in the category, and then people have these great ideas and they add another one, and over time, there's suddenly 13 items in the category, and the average deviation went from 20% up to 55%. And what has that done? Have you really increased sales that much? Or has sales gone up really just a little bit? And what you've done is you increased inventory and the inventory expense. What's ironic is a lot of the people on the webinar here, they have all this data, but their merchandising friends down the hall need it to make these decisions, don't they?
They sure do. And when you think about, guys, Dan mentioned a word a moment ago, add. When we add to the mix and we add to the mix, well, we're really good at adding. Historically, I know we were at my company, we were great at adding to the category, but we were not really good at analyzing and removing from the category.
That's right.
And making smart decisions. And the deviation is a great way to help guide that conversation.
It really is. You've got to know these numbers. So the final slide in this one we're going to show you is going to wrap up the goal that we mentioned up front. The fact that demand deviation influences and should influence your merchandising mix, and it does influence your income statement. What is your overall number, and how does it compare to 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and 5 years from now? Always know these 2 numbers. Make sure the head of your company wants to know these numbers. What is your average forecast, your average dollar weighted forecast? What's your average deviation? And if you just add items, like Barry said, and not subtract, that average forecast will go down to 12. And that deviation will jump up to 52. And then you'll wonder why you can't make money anymore. And this is the reason. Nothing influences your ability to make money more than this right here. That's a strong statement. Woo! That's a biggie.
It is. High five.
Thank you so much. Okay. We're going to blow through a couple of others. Some of these will be a little bit shorter, but still critical. Number 2, Barry, we're basically saying, does this chart ring a bell? The purpose of this section is to reintroduce the idea behind doing exceptions, doing item demand exceptions and their importance. Okay. Did you go over this chart in university, in a class ever?
Sure did.
Didn't you love it?
I did. It helped me out many times.
Yeah, you loved when it was over. So you look at this chart and you kind of remember it from some class. We want to make sure you know that when you do, or if you're already using an advanced system, that's exactly what your period end exceptions are doing. They're trying to show you these outliers, okay? And we went ahead and grabbed a picture like this from a buyer using one of these advanced systems, using actually our sponsor system. And we said, okay, for this buyer, here are the items. 381 items, sold one error, one deviation more than expected. 226 berries sold 1 to 2 deviations more than expected. And this curve looks like that exact bell. And it's going to look like that every period. Now, by the way, if one period leans a little bit to the left or the right, you're probably seasonal in that direction. And you've got to then tackle your seasonal forecasting. But this is what you're doing. And here's one of the reasons we mentioned this. You and I both did these exceptions back when we were analysts, right?
Right.
We didn't enjoy it. And we didn't enjoy it, and too often we just looked at it as a task rather than us basically asking the solution to show us these exceptions, right? It was all about how you look at it. What you're really asking when you do this type of exception work, you're asking your system to tell you, in this case, you might say, show me all the ones from line 5 and forward, or on the downside, show me anything from a -3 and backwards. You know, where did we sell a lot more, a lot less than expected? And here's the beauty. For these companies that have this types of advanced analytics, they can add filters. And instead of just seeing these, they could filter out the slowest movers. So they see not 44 items right here, but maybe it's 12. And even this one here, they might say, hey, for my fastest movers, my A items, of these 64, I might have 3 A items that are just in this one. So never be content with just seeing what your solution initially wants to show. Build your own views, build your own exceptions, and pull this stuff out.
Yeah, dive a little bit deeper. You know, I remember, you said going back, talking about working exceptions, and I remember it just like it was yesterday. You're going through these exceptions, and it becomes a task. It becomes so mundane and ordinary and routine, and it just challenges the way that we approach them from the standpoint that we don't get strategic.
Yeah.
We just want to get through this task to get to the next thing. Well, by using filtering in a diagram like this and diving in deeper, you're able to get to the items where you're really going to focus on and make this and have more of a focus on making a better decision, because you're narrowing down. Instead of looking at 50, hey, I'm looking at 5 to 8.
That's right.
And I can make some really good decisions on 5 to 8 versus going through 50. And once I'm at 40, 48, 49, and 50, I've run out of gas.
Well, and those filters you're mentioning, you can have it be just A items that are private label, that are also this and that, and a cost above this. You could really narrow it down just to what you want to see. So we said up front, we want to reintroduce this thought process to you. And here's our final thought here. Don't go in and start your exceptions until you've seen this picture to see what's happened in the big picture, where sales a lot more or less than expected. Then you dive in, because then you're seeing the macro before the micro. I know those are big words. Okay, the next two, numbers 3 and 4, Barry, are tied together because they're lead time, and this is that sleeper component. But gang, we want you to listen in on a couple of things that might be getting you in terms of missed service right now. On the lead time side, these two quick pieces, the first one is a reminder that your lead times can sometimes bully your safety stocks. So here's a quick picture of, again, a ton of items we pulled together, and we are showing here that the short lead time items tend to have the lowest safety stocks. 0 to 7 day lead time, average safety stock of 5 days. Now, I know that's across a lot of vendors with a lot of different attributes, but still averaging here, and then it goes up, 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 and take a look. The 2-month lead times and beyond, really the imports, you're talking a month and a half and more of safety stock. A month and a half and more of safety stock. Gang, we want you to know, hold on. I have no idea how to stop those. We want you to know what your picture looks like, because as you know that, we want you to take a look and see what your true net profit is. You might be buying items that are import items because they have a cheaper price, but you're actually getting less profit because of all that extra safety stock that we're keeping, right? That's just a key thing to keep in mind. Then the other part of lead time is this. They can be deviant. They can be deviant. So they aren't all, like we said last week, they aren't all 20% deviation. They're all different, and your shortest lead times are your highest deviation, and that'll get you. If you're sitting at 20 days on a 7-day lead time, you will wonder why you're missing service. And then as it goes longer and longer, you probably have a much more consistent deviation. So that deviation number is key. We actually showed this a bit last week, Barry. But also, you and I did some simulations earlier this week, and we knew it would be similar to this. It's a little bit by chance it's hitting this perfectly. We took a bunch of vendors between 7 and 14-day lead times, okay? That was important. Keep it to a pretty tight window. 7 to 14-day lead times. But as the lead time deviation was 0 to 10, it was a 5-day safety stock. 10 to 20, a 6-day. And then went up to 7 and 8, and it just kept going up like this. The reminder is this. It's the sleeper component, and we're going to hit 2 key things here. One is the short lead time. We just showed it. On those short lead time suppliers, that deviation has got to be high enough. In other words, if you're not forecasting it automatically, make sure it's not still sitting at 20%. It will not do the job for you. We've talked to so many analysts this year that have said they had a 20% number in and they kept missing. And when they got it up to its true number, you know, a 7-day with a 40% deviation, that's pretty normal. They got it to the true number. They finally started hitting. And then we have a really bold one to share. Ooh, fixed cycle suppliers. Gang, if you're not tuned in, tune in heavy right now. If you have some lines set to fixed cycle to buy every Wednesday, and you believe and know that the lead time is 7 days, you might be cutting it short. And here's why. Even though you've set that line to buy every Wednesday, it may have wanted to buy earlier, Tuesday, Monday, Friday. It may have wanted to buy, but it couldn't. So you didn't hit the key, you didn't hit the button to replenish it until Wednesday, but it wanted to buy Monday or even Friday. So to us, the true lead time is not from the day you hit the button until it arrives. It's from the day it was needed until it arrives, which sometimes is sooner, is earlier, which means if you put a 7-day lead time and it's truly about 7 days, you might be cutting it short on your fixed cycle lines. And the reason we tell you this with confidence, we have all these analytics to see that when people cut it short on fixed cycle lines, they tend to miss much more often than they want to. You've seen it, haven't you?
I've seen it. And, you know, just to go back a couple of pictures a moment ago, we talked about lead time being the sleeper component and the deviation being true deviant. Well, remember this, you guys out there, you know the components of safety stock. We don't need to tell you what those are, but know that as your lead times hit that 2-month window and beyond, safety stock is impacted the most by your lead time.
That's a great point.
Okay, so remember that, but also tie in to that the deviation, because the deviation will help you, and we'll talk about this in just a bit, will help you as you're starting out with new items, how to properly get those with the right settings so that you can hit the ground running with new items, which are always a challenge for all of us.
Yeah, great point, Barry. And it's a reminder to me and everyone that it is the sleeper component. It's the sleeper component. Take it very seriously. If you're missing service, it's probably the first area we go to. Okay, we're moving through. We've got a few more to hit. We're about halfway through this thing. And here is a big one, and I mean a big one. And we hit briefly on it last week, but it's really about the buying multiples and how they tie into order cycles. And so let's pull up a couple of pictures. We're talking in step 3, Barry. We're talking here in step 3 about order cycles. But in the picture, here's a reminder that in this picture, when we do buy, if we're buying 20 days worth, that's a combination of the fact that we thought we're buying 14 days worth because the vendor order cycle was set to 14, but actually the items as they're buying, because of the blend of the item economics on some slower movers and the buying multiples and how they're set, these all combine, and actually for this buyer, they're buying an average of 20 days supply when they buy. This one, we talked to them, they thought it was 14 days. We said, no, because of some of your settings, you're buying, in a frequency of about 20 days on the average. And that's fine, but we want to focus on that buying multiple. So we hit 100 buyers this year on this subject, by the way, across several companies. And here's an example of someone that did not have a buying multiple strategy, or at least not a good one.
Yeah, this picture right here, compared to what we're going to show you, this one really fights with my eyes right now, knowing what's coming.
I know it upsets you. And this basically says, hey, look, the 0 to 1 items, there's no question. When you buy, even if the buying multiple is a 1, that could be 6 months supply. So those are kind of off the chart. The 1 to 10s for this buyer, 40 days supply on their buying multiple. Notice we're saying days. On the 10 to 50, 20 days supply. I would expect it, as you would, to keep coming down, but theirs went back up. Look at that. They kind of leveled off. That's not good. And overall, their average, Barry, is 21 days. Their buying multiples meant that on the average, all of their items, dollar weighted average was 21 days. Compare that to the picture you do like, right here.
Much better.
The nice cascading approach. And take a look at this. The fastest movers, when they buy, they only round to a buying multiple of 2 days on the average. That means on that depletion chart, it doesn't have to overshoot it in a big way. They're averaging 8 days on all of these, but the key items are way down here, as they should be. Okay, so what's it look like then on the depletion? Imagine a world with no buying multiples. Let's say we're buying and it's almost like just pouring liquid in total into the truck, Mm-hmm. When we buy everything, whether it's the items needed or the ones coming along for the ride that we don't want to buy again until, that next time, we buy them all to that same point, that same order up 2 level. That's a pretty picture, because in the end, we get them all to the same spot and they're all balanced and they're all in harmony. And that's very pretty. That's really an ideal picture. It's never going to be exactly like this because we're going to have buying multiples, but we just want the buying multiples to overshoot it somewhat, not a ton. However, that first buyer we showed, that first analyst, with that 21-day average, their A items were all sitting at 3 weeks and beyond in buying multiples. What that means is this. When those items went to buy, they didn't buy just to here and then balance the line. They went, way up here. And then you're working like a manufacturer where everything sits on its own. You're not buying in harmony, or what we call joint replenishment. So you buy everything way up here and it all comes down and it's all in different spots. And Barry, that's really expensive because the inventory never gets down to where it could get down. You're always then placing orders based on certain items that trip things up. You are forced to buy because some items are in trouble, enough items are in trouble, but some of the high cost A items, they're sitting way up here. And what do? They go boom, way up here again. Very expensive. We've seen some of the most dramatic inventory reduction this year from analysts that have gotten their buying multiples in line, right? It's been unbelievable. A combination of certainly lowering the overall effective order cycle, but also not topping off and having those items sit way up. It's been astounding how many millions of dollars have reduced.
Yeah, and it really has reduced their replenishment time, their buying time, because now they're not fighting with each order to see, okay, here's some items here. Should I wait? Should I buy it early? No, I've got to buy it early. Oh, now I've got to top off. Instead of, like Dan said a moment ago, gang, letting the items deplete down to when they want to be bought.
Yes.
So reduce the ordering time, and the productivity went through the roof, in addition to what Dan mentioned a moment ago, huge inventory reductions when this was tidy.
Absolutely. Now, Barry, a final thought on this, because some of them are out there saying, okay, what if I do this? What if I get my strategy set, get it smarter, get them tighter? If I do all of that, I might start to buy much more often than my warehouses or stores are ready for. Okay, that's an understandable thought, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that order cycle that's set to 14 days on this line, maybe that's not really then what you want. The better way to do it than having every item live on its own, the better way to do it is make your adjustments so that maybe on everything, we're basically buying everything evenly, but a little bit less often. An 18-day cycle rather than a 14-day, but as you can see, they're all in harmony. They're all in harmony, and that's a much better approach. That'll still bring the inventory down dramatically. Now, we'd like to challenge you with a question on each one of these. And in this one, we're talking buying multiples. Our suggestion, the goal is smart strategies will lower inventories. That's our promise. Smart buying multiple strategies will lower inventories dramatically. We have seen heroic feats this year, and people are shocked at how much it reduced their inventory. Now, one thing to watch, if you don't have a smart strategy, even if you do or don't, here's a number we want you to start to watch. For those with an advanced system that can pull it off, when you replenish a line, start to watch what the average delay days is across all of your items. As we like to say, an average dollar weighted delay days, right? If you watch that and you get smarter on these strategies, you'll watch that number drop. You may have bought and it was sitting at an 18-day delay days average, even though some items triggered it. You get the strategy really smart, you go to replenishment, it's now sitting at a 9-day average days delay, and you know then you're pulling your inventory down in a big way.
Absolutely. All of the times where you're, the picture we showed you before where you're fighting with each of these replenishment orders because you're buying multiples or sort of, let me use a technical term, out of whack. When you're fighting with that, your days of delay are going to be higher because you're going to naturally buy earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us, well, probably all of us on this call, realize I've got a bracket, I've got a constraint that I have to meet. So that just continues to top off. And the opportunity to get that days of delay number where it needs to be is out there for everybody.
So, for a planner, go ahead and track your overall delay days. I mean, across all items, all vendors, and watch it over time. That'll tell you everything about where your inventory is. So gang, I'm going to mention our sponsor again, Blue Ridge, because if you're working with them, their Lifeline team will help you set that up to do that and to watch them through analytics. Bear, we have two big ones left, two biggies. One is one of our favorite discussions because we are all very poor at it. I shouldn't say that. We have so many people online. Some might be really good at it. Most are not very good at this, and that's new item management. So let's talk the new item turnaround, which I know you wrote a song to. We just don't have time this time.
I did. Well, if you guys could see us here in the studio, we are waving a white flag right now, right? Because when someone comes at us and is complaining about new items, what are we doing?
Not my problem, not my fault, because it's new. What could I have done?
Exactly.
That's the flag we put up. But actually, that's false. Even though you can sometimes get away with that, don't anymore. Just decide to get good here. And here's why we're covering this area. A lot of words on the screen. We are not going to read all of them, but these are some of the new item pitfalls. Barry, I'm going to pull two of these pitfalls together and just say this. Numbers 4 and 5. Here's the problem we see. There's really no unique new item strategy. I mean a strategy that says we're going to be good at this, and they don't know their new item numbers. And if you can tie those two things together, you will change your world and your new item world, right? So here's what we're going to do. We want to make sure you know your numbers with something as basic as this. So Barry's my boss. He's the president of the company. I'm walking down the hall and he says to me, "Hey, Dan, tell me about your new item picture right now." Yeah, I know I've worked with a bunch of suppliers. I've been pushing to bring in some new items. How are they doing? What's it look like in your portfolio? I should be able to say this right here. "Well, boss," which is uncomfortable, by the way.
Feels pretty good here.
My new items make up 5% of my SKU count, but they're currently making up 8% of my inventory dollars. So I'm a little top heavy there, but that's normal. Unfortunately, they're only driving 3% of my sales revenue. So that's a little out of whack, but again, that's going to be a little bit normal, but it shows why we have to monitor this so closely, because it's normally a category that has some strange, values to it. You've got to really watch closely. Unfortunately, I'm only achieving 89%, where I normally achieve 97. I'm only hitting 89% on these. But Barry, I'm going to get better at this because I have a plan. And the first part of my plan is this. I have committed, because I went to session 2, I am committed to this. I used to spend about the same amount of time on new items as all items. And I realized these need special attention. These are the children that need the special pampering. So I'm going to use the 3X or even 4X strategy that says if 5% of my items are new, I'm going to make it 15% of my time, 15% of my focus, if not more. I like the people that say, no, it's a 4X for me. This has to be the commitment from everybody. Just to know, to be good at new items, it's going to take a lot of special attention. So Barry and I did this. We put together a worksheet for you guys. And it looks like this. And it's not just new item setup. It's really kind of a serious, an aggressive setup. Because we believe that very often we focus on a forecast and that's it. Hey, here's a new item. Let's pop a forecast in and move on. Now, we know that sometimes an item takes over for another. Some of you have the advanced tools to have one item transfer all of its information to the next. That's fantastic. That still needs a lot of pampering and reporting watch. But these are all of those components that need to be tackled. And it's not just the forecast, Barry. So yes, I'm putting in a forecast of 30. Let's say this. Okay, boss. New item, I put in a forecast of 30. That's from some feedback from sales, from the supplier, from my analysis. And it starts there. But then don't forget this. Is it seasonal? Because if I believe it's going to sell in a similar season to another item, I can't do nothing. If I do nothing, I'm going to fail. I at least have to borrow the profile, Barry, of another item.
Right.
And we find that too often people don't do that. The ones that do it, they have kind of a little catalog here. And they know, okay, for this category, at this rate of item, here is a very strong profile ID, seasonal profile ID that you can use to apply to that new item. Seems like such a basic thing, but many forget that step.
Well, that's just it. It's spending the time, the multiplier, the 3X, the 4X multiplier on new items enables you to do this. Some of you who maybe were like I was, or like I was years ago, I never did all of these things. I did the basics and went on to the next.
Agreed.
But you have, when you spend more time, then you can do these types of things. You can have your category list of seasonal profiles. You can understand what the deviation is in a certain range of products so that you know this deviation for my lead times of 7 to 14 or whatever needs to be this.
Well, that's it. So these two deviations, Barry, they have all the info, especially those using the advanced solution. They can see that an item that sells 30 tends to deviate about 34%. So don't start it at 20%. It's going to fail for you. Start it where it should be. Same thing as you just said on the lead time side. Get the right lead time in. And even if it's a certain portion of the supplier where that lead time deviation is higher or lower, get a unique number in there as well. And then just finish it off. The buying multiple's got to be smart and strategic. We just talked about that. Is there a shelf life? Does the service level goal match the rate of that item and where you want to be? This is a reminder that all of these components, you're going to hit them up front. And then on a lot of these, you're going to watch them in the initial periods and make adjustments. But these components are the ones you need to make adjustments to. And for each of these, all of you might have a unique source of where you're going to get this information. Some will come from supplier and so forth. But this is a great workshop discussion. If you want to be great at new items, you can do it. And we won't even hit the reporting, but you should put unique reporting together that on a daily and each period basis tells you which new items are performing well and not, and are out of stock and so forth. We're not big fans of period to date information normally, but on a new item we are, because if they're taking off, you ought to see it quickly.
And Dan, I love what you mentioned a moment ago. He used a key word here, gang, and it was decide. Make the decision to get good on new items, and you will.
Exactly. So wrapping that one up, Barry, the 3-time strategy means serious setup, serious reporting, and like you said, you will hit the results. And that leads us to this one. It could be our favorite one. It's the final one. It's number 7. It could be our favorite one. And it looks like this. So sit back for a second, everyone. You're going to enjoy this one. Here's what we don't want you to do. Gone are the days where you just say at the end of a period, hey, I hit 97.5 service or fill rate. That's great. That's a starting point, but that's not enough. And it's actually not enough just to say, yeah, 97.5 overall, but here are a couple of vendors that did really well or poorly and some items that did really well or poorly. We know you're going to do that. Key items, key vendors. It's time to go beyond that and really into the inventory sectors, as we call it. We want to make sure you know and you watch and see how you did on these sectors, which could be slow movers, new items, or notice the shade here, Barry, the combination of a slow moving new item or a seasonal item that's also new, or a seasonal item that's new and slow moving. All of these, because here's what we find, gang. The last several years with analytics, we see that you don't miss fill rate or service evenly across the board. It happens in certain sectors like this. You need to find those sectors, work on them, enhance them, and fix them, and that's where things get better. Don't just crank the service level knob up another point hoping it solves it. You'll just throw money at the wrong areas. And here's what we're going to show you. If we take all of these sectors to the left that we want you to watch, you'll have more of your own also. Slow movers, fast movers, low safety stock, high safety stock, private label, and so forth. We want you to see all this stuff. But in the past, you probably didn't have the tools to do it. And over to the right, if you're asking, hey, are all of these words in this word scramble here? Yes, they are. And then you're asking, how did you do it, guys? Letter by letter? No. We Googled and found a tool that let us copy this list and paste it in, and in 30 seconds, it gave us this. That was exciting. Here was the part that was not exciting. We were going to go through and circle every one of these, but Barry got a little frustrated because it was time consuming. So we found a few of them and we stopped, but they're all in there. But this is what it's been like for you, especially those that have been in our world for the past 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. You've had a hard time finding this info. You should have tools now that let you bubble this stuff up and see it. And whether it looks like something in a basic Excel type of view like this, and this isn't bad, it's much better than having nothing, right? It's great to be able to look and say, hey, here are my great performers, the red are my poor performers. I can focus on those sectors, new A items, new slow movers, short order cycle, short lead time items, which by the way, everybody misses on that combination of short order cycle, short lead time. Find those items and see what you're hitting. We guarantee you're probably not hitting what you thought. This is what we want you to see. If you're using something advanced, and we'd love to make sure that you are, there are advanced tools now that you're seeing as stuff in great pictures where you can mouse over, see great detail. But our main push is to make sure that you're seeing these sectors, because you are missing in certain sectors. Just find those sectors and enhance them, and all the numbers will get better, and stop throwing money at all the rest.
Yeah, I love
That's the key thing.
Well, it is. And I love what you said a moment ago. Find the problem, find the pocket, the area of concern, the area where you need to improve, fix, and move on. Historically, we have seen, and I'll reiterate what you said a moment ago, we have seen companies throw money at problems with service by raising the service levels and not really doing the homework and the investigation to find the pockets, because throwing money at it doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. So here's our final goal then from what you just said. The final goal for number 7 is this. Inventory sectors are telling you a story. They're trying to tell you a story and they're requesting action. Go find the story and then take the action, right? We've seen people do it. It's unbelievable. They're able to fix things quickly, smoothly, and without spending a bunch of money. So gang, those were our 7 key case studies for this session. We want you to know that our next session is Thursday, January 9th. We're going to really guide you on a journey of refinement. I mean, we're really going to put a calendar together for you on how to go in and refine these areas, suggested tools, and how to put a custom plan together for the year. That's why it's perfect that it's in January, right? Start the year off with it. But we do want to open this up for any questions if people have them. A reminder, the recording will be out there for everyone. You can pass it on to other folks. And there is a page where all of these recordings are sitting out. So at some point, turn this into a nice, educational path for your team. That's a strong suggestion. If you have any questions, if you can click on the chat box at least and type those in, that would be great. And I know very often people don't have them. They're also welcome to, email and so forth later. But if anyone has anything, please type it in there. Barry's birthday. We keep that private, everyone. Sorry.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's really nice of them to ask that question. Okay. All right. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Gang, we really appreciate everyone tuning in, the various industries and such. We hope you've gotten some out of this. And again, in just a couple of days, 2-3 days, look for this. It'll be out there online to re-go through for your team. But we appreciate it very much. And thanks again to Blue Ridge for sponsoring this. And we appreciate them doing it again in January for us on the 9th.
Yes. Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you next time.
Thanks so much.